Valalar yarası tazedir, sarsmayasınız babamızı. Hadi bey, bırak da sarılsınlar.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from my end. I don't know, yours may be good morning or it might be good evening. Welcome to the eighth edition of TONIPASH Sustainable Energy Talk. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Well,
we
I
can
can.
hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much for making out time. Yeah. Can you all hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for making out time to join us for the series. So far, we've had eight editions of 25 Sustainable Energy Talk. And okay, seven, and this is the eighth one, which we are kickstarting immediately. So this week, this particular edition, we shall be discussing the role of ICT in achieving SDG 7, especially in Africa, where we know the energy deficit in the continent is really high, and especially access to clean energy in Africa. A lot of initiatives have been taken from different international organizations, governments, and private entities to see how to deepen access to energy. So 25 Sustainable Energy Talk is one of the approach that we as a company use to create more awareness industry about the different developments in the industry and also discuss the challenges that are bound in the industry. So I thank also our respectable, esteemed panelists today who have joined us to share more insights about activities as it concerns achievement of SDG 7, looking at the ICT industry. So our panelists are great today. We have Sochima Abude, who will be the moderator for today's session. We also have Kennedy Minor, who will be also a panelist on this event. We also have Ewuzie Azuka, who is also part of the panelists. We also have Wangechi Wangi, who is part of our panelists, and also Joseph Brendan, who is also part of these panelists. So I think Joseph is here to hook up. So I'll hand over now to uh, Sochima. But before then, allow me to use a few minutes to introduce you properly to Sochima Barbara. Okay, Sochima Barbara Abude is a clean energy personnel who has demonstrated outstanding performance in business and strategic development, most notably with excellent communication skills and management ability. She's familiar with the project and business development process for standalone and interconnected mini-grid system and has been involved in the ongoing Nigerian electrification program and also the IMAs and also other renewable energy initiatives, collaborating with local and international development partners such as the Rural Electrification Agency, Shell Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, GIZ, Rocky Mountain Institute, Cross-Border Innovation Labs, etc. He specializes in conceptualizing specializes in conceptualizing and designing productive youth business models, such as appliance financing and agricultural acceleration programs, and has been the project lead on numerous energy utilization and optimization initiatives. So Chima is currently pursuing a master's degree in advanced technology management sustainability at the University of Wolverhampton, and is dedicated to using her knowledge and skills to close the energy gap in Nigeria. That's really a rich profile of our moderator today. So, ladies and gentlemen, Sochima Abude, our moderator for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's amazing to be here. Such an opportunity to discuss with like minds with the same vision, reducing the energy access gap in Nigeria. Basically, like Mr. Tony said, today we're going to be focusing on the role ICT has on energy access, improving energy access in Africa. ICT, in my opinion, has a very large influence, right from the project development stage down to monitoring and utilization of energy systems. And we have amazing panelists that will be sharing their wealth of knowledge in different areas concerning how ICT influences energy access. So I would just call on our different panelists, and then, they'll grace us with their presence and introduce themselves. So with us here, we have Azuka Iwozie, who is a co-founder of Solar Car Trading. Azuka, please, if you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself, that would be amazing.
Hello, the board of members. My name is Azuka Iwozie. I'm a co-founder of Solar Car Trading, Pty Limited here in South Africa. We are a startup in smart integration, renewable energy. It's nice to have me here. It's nice to have everyone here. Thanks.
Azuka. Thank you so much, Azuka. It's nice to have you here. I also have.
Sorry, Sochima. For the panelists, you could briefly let us see your face. If that is convenient for you, you can still go off so that we can save the bandwidth. But for your introduction, you could just show us your face. I know my own face is not showing, so let me try and do that too now, so that please everybody can put a face to Anthony Akwaso, who is the CEO of TONIPASH Energy and convener of the TONIPASH Sustainable Energy Talk. Thank you. Yeah, please, you can go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm not hearing anybody here again.
Hello, Sochima.
Hello? Sorry.
Yeah, please, we can go. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Iwozie, for introducing yourself, and Mr. Anthony for telling us to turn on our videos. I think the downside of turning on videos is it could possibly, reduce connectivity. But if you're comfortable with turning on a video, that's fine. So along with me here on this call is Wangechi Wangi. Please, Ms. Wangechi, if you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself, that would be amazing.
Thank you, Sochima. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wangechi Wangi from Nairobi, Kenya. I work at a power generation company called KenGen. I'm in the IT department, and I'm a technology business analyst. And today I am glad to join you in this forum. Thank you.
Amazing to have you here as well. I would also have Mr. Joseph Bendan. Mr. Joseph Bendan, software UX engineer. If you can hear me, if you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself to everybody, that would be amazing.
I don't think he's on the call yet.
Okay. So I think with the absence of Mr. Joseph, we'll basically kick off with the conversation. So if Mr. Ewuzie Azuka can, introduce his topic and let us into the wealth of knowledge you have to share with us today.
Okay, then we are into smart meter initiative that will systemize the system of renewable energy. We are on the prototype development initiative with our innovative production. At the meantime, our product is not there in the market. We are working on it to finish the prototype so that we can come into the market at the moment.
Okay. So, Mr. Ewuzie, I understand you're supposed to discuss on a particular topic with us today.
Yeah, okay. The Smart Gray initiative in renewable energy is a game-changing in how we generate electricity. Like in IoT or IoE, it's a in every resident or business within the industries, which is supplying electricity through the grid, which is the electricity network service providing infrastructure. The smart grid is the next generation of those energy systems which have been updated with the communication technology and connectivity to drive smart resources use for electricity demand. The technology today makes IoT enable energy smart grid, including wireless devices such as sensors, radio, models, gateways, and routers. Those devices provide the systematic connectivities and communication that empower consumers to.
Sorry, Mr. Ewuzie. Sorry for cutting in. Can you share your screen from your end, your slides, please?
I'm trying to put my screen up, but I couldn't. I don't know why.
Oh, okay. I'll try from my end too. Sorry about that.
Okay, please. Okay, those devices provide the connectivities that communication that empower consumers to make better energy usage decisions that allow cities to sell electricity and less expensive in electricity, which enable power authorities to act more quicker in restore power shortage before occurring. The growing trend today is for municipalities, the communities to move into smart grids. The technologies for the range of the seasons are just they're in a small urgent, not in a big urgent. Instead, the growing trend today for the municipalities to move towards smart grid technology. Those including the needs to improve energy usage that will improve a better customizing service to all the communities that move to smart grid, which prepare for a power notification, upgrading the system before the grid can go there. Like in Nigeria, where they have a national grid shutting down, all those things need to occur if you are into IoT technologies, understand? Not only those an IoT-based smart grid system provide intelligence, visibilities, controls, communication into the energy consumption process. Smart grid enable greenhouses adoptions as a wide scale. First of all, together with the reducing waste energy, emotional, secondly, smart grid architectures allow including renewable energy into networking, which makes clean energy source more accessible for all the people. As well as we all know in advance into renewable energy technologies, have to make our wireless devices, to be affordable and easy to use in smartphones applications, like we and others people working on IoT technologies, trying to make how we generate electricity accessible, for all, which we don't need all those maybe somebody using energy don't know where the energy is coming from. Understand with all these things, people can understand how they use their electricity, how they manage their electricity, according to our high demands voltage transmissions line energy data collectively storage systems that will promote uninterrupted electricity supply. Well, in our business service is attracting all the smart usage which the community will adopt in requiring electricity from the grid, and thereby stand to benefit when municipalities adopt to smart grid technology with every communities around in maybe cities, like national and like in smart grid generation. We don't need maybe electricity coming from one source. People can release their electricity almost on the peak time. Understand, when the demand is high, you can check the cheap electricity. All those things will help us in generating electricity in this modern time. Hello.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Iwozi. Are you? It's. Hello, Mr. Iwozi, are you still speaking?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Are you done with your presentation?
I'm done for now.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Iwozi. I think I totally agree with you. Smart grids and ICT is very important in deploying smart grids, not only in deploying smart grids, but also developing more cost-effective ways of promoting clean energy assets, particularly in rural communities where electricity consumption is an issue and private investors are also pumped to invest in communities where their return on investment will take a longer period of time. So I totally agree with you. I think ICT will not only catalyze energy access in Africa, but would also bring about the development of more cost-effective and efficient ways of extending electricity to unserved rural communities. Thank you so much for that. For her next presentation, I'll call on Mrs. Wangechi, who would basically be connecting the dots between ICT and energy access from the electricity generation point of view. Ms. Wangechi, please, if you could unmute yourself and start your presentation, that would be amazing.
Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, I can see your screen.
You can see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So just a second.
Hello?
I'm trying to put it on presentation mode.
Okay.
Okay. So again, good afternoon, everyone. As I mentioned, I work for a company in Kenya that generates electricity. We are 30% privately owned and 70% government owned. We currently do a mix of generation modes. That's thermal, 25%, wind, 26%, geothermal, 700 megawatts, hydro, 800 megawatts. So KenGen has been making very high investments in the renewable energy space, especially in the geothermal area over the last few years. And we are currently at 84% of the generation output when it comes to renewable energies. With the SDGs, which is what the UN 2015 brought on board, the SDG 7 is basically to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all by 2030. And basically, this is just to ensure sustainability increase in the share of especially renewable energy in the global energy mix. So why does this matter to us in Africa? In aligning this to our continent, we need to ask ourselves a few questions. For example, what actions can be taken or are already being taken to accelerate access to clean and affordable energy in Africa? Some of the challenges that we face in over 20 countries with the worst rates of access to clean cooking. We account for almost 81% of the global population without access to these clean fuels and technologies. And of these 20 countries, research shows that almost 20 of these countries are located in the sub-Saharan Africa. And according to a report by the World Bank, 733 billion people in sub-Saharan Africa still lack access to electricity. And if we go on with the same pace we are in now, chances are by 2030, we will only have reached another, say, 100 if we go on with the same progress. So some of the main challenges that we face in affordable and clean energy in our continent basically include access to modern electricity, indoor air pollution, which kills almost 4.3 million people in Africa annually, and fossil fuels, which is the main contributor of climate change, which represents almost 60% of all greenhouse gases. Some of the solutions that we need to be looking at today is how do we ensure and promote modern technologies that make electricity supply more reliable? How do we engage more governments and more players to be able to increase the share of renewable energy in the energy mix? And how do we put in place policies that will help us govern these challenges? So in order for us to remain and improve our livelihoods with all the SDGs as provided, SDG 7 is actually one of the most important ones, as this is what will help us foster and run all the other sectors. And I'm sure most of us are in this room today, believing that this next generation of ICT infrastructure is what will actually power the evolution of smart and sustainable cities and communities, not just in Africa, but in the world. My colleague has already talked about renewable energy. And for us in Africa, We actually need this energy to drive our economy. And the big question we need to be asking ourselves is, in another 10 to 20 years, will Africa actually be able to meet this need that keeps rising on a daily? So there's need to fast track this renewable energy and IT technologies across the continent so that we're able to especially go green. My colleague has talked about smart grid, so I'll not delve into that. So in my focus today, I'll mostly look at 5 of these innovation trends that we can adopt as a continent that will actually help us in terms of moving forward when it comes to SDG 7 and technologies. Emerging technologies, we're now in the era of the Industrial Revolution, and I'm sure most of you have heard about this. And the UN is stressing about access to reliable sources of energy, and the demand keeps growing. But how do we ensure that we keep our assets ready to power this economy? So understanding the root cause for efficient and unaffordable energy is key in knowing where to start. And for us to meet future demands, we need to bring on energy efficiency across. So when we look at our continent, there's a lot of delays, especially in spares, lead time, availability of the right resources to help us manage our power sector organizations, aging assets, because most of our power plants have been there for many years, slow decision making, also incorporated with poor management of many energy companies across Africa. So what are some of the things that we can actually adopt in ensuring that we cover some of these challenges? So adoption of emerging technologies is one of them. When we look at how do we monitor our assets, how do we manage energy efficiency? How do we monitor our energy infrastructure to find faults in advance so as to maintain the uninterrupted power supply? Efficiency maintenance practices that can be adopted with IoTs and machine learning and augmented reality, and not forgetting big data to help us drive data-driven decision making for efficiency in running our power plants. One of the technologies I'd like to share today is on 3D printing. So this is an additive manufacturing process where we're talking about actually manufacturing these spare parts within where we are located so that we're able to reduce the lead time in terms of manufacturers, because being in Africa, we realize that most of our assets manufacturers are actually based in Europe and America and the East. So the lead time that it takes to bring on board some of these spare parts is actually one of the key problems that our continent faces. Transport to get this to our power plants, and this leads to very long downtimes when it comes to our power plants. So there's an on your right, you see an image of an equipment called Free Your Mind. So this is an innovation by one of the wind manufacturing companies who have actually taken up 3D printing for a gear drive. So this is actually a gear drive that they've been able to manufacture right from where they are. So this actually makes their maintenance processes more effective. Another process we can look at today is how to enhance our maintenance strategies. Innovation has actually aided digital transformation across our industries, and utilities should actually take this up, because this will become very critical to integrate data sets across our legacy systems, our plant systems, and get to use these analytical frameworks to actually automate our processes to drive such outcomes. This eventually brings efficiency in our grids or in our power plants. So can we bring on board smart monitoring of our faulty operations? Are we able to utilize artificial intelligence or AI to forecast some of the renewable production plants Are we able to forecast analysis when it comes to energy flow and smart energy grids? Are we able to monitor some of the transmission line faults? Are we able to bring on board IoT devices, as LK has just mentioned, to be able to actually drive our energy providers and businesses? Another technology we can look at is energy storage. So batteries have now become quite affordable in the market, and there's need to explore and adopt this energy storage in Africa so as to reach decarbonized electricity efficiently by the year 2050. So energy storage is needed to keep powering over when the renewable energy in question is not available. For example, when the sun is not shining and we have our solar systems, or when the wind is not blowing when we have our wind system. So in Africa, for example, where we have semi-arid and inaccessible rural areas, battery storage can actually be a very effective mode in ensuring access to energy options. Another technology we can look at is blockchain, and how we can bring on board and manage policies across board. So the global energy system is actually changing, and in a continent like ours where the population keeps rising, we'll come to realize in a few years that we need to manage these living standards that require more energy to keep fueling the day-to-day business. One of the key things we need to look at in terms of policy is how to reduce the carbon emissions and tackle climate change when it comes to the energy environment. And a focus on renewable energy can actually help lower these emissions with an aim of attaining net zero in Africa. There are actually steps that are being taken already, like switching to solar panels as a way of electricity generation. And this can have a very big impact on our environment. We can also look at deploying innovative technologies that improve sustainability, like blockchains. And here we can look at how to bring on board utilizing and access of technology and utilizing the kind of resources that we already have. For example, Kengen, being on renewable energy, is already trading on carbon credits, is already getting carbon credits. But how do we trade with some of these carbon credits when it comes to blockchain? So blockchain will actually incentivize further adoption of renewable energy in the coming days. Some might say blockchain is still a technology of the future, but there's some research that already shows that it can actually be used. It can be used to bypass centralized scrutiny. It can be used to transfer trust from often corruptible human minds in Africa to some transparent mathematics of the encrypted mode. Other feature models that as a continent, we can see how best to bring on board is to empower our customer base, because the customers that we have now are very empowered. They are running on mobile technologies and the internet and many other technologies. So how do we empower our customers who are very demanding nowadays to actually bring a very flexible way of operating? So there's a concept being called energy as a service. And this energy as a service just basically means all energy assets from end to end are actually being covered. Can Africa actually be able to reach a level where we can fully deploy, for example, pay-as-you-go energy utility models in terms of financing technology? Some solar companies have actually adopted this, and these are some of the technologies that we can see if they can actually be adopted within Africa. Opportunities that are available within this sector, all players that include the government, the financials, learning institutions, policymakers, and energy sector are all part of ensuring that SDG 7 works for us as a continent. And some of the roles and expertise are still required within Africa to make this possible. We need to figure how to continue aligning our strategies to the SDG targets. We need to keep making this SDG awareness across board and enforcing the policies that should come on board, especially for renewable energy. We need expertise in terms of driving and increasing this renewable energy, as well as financial support, technological infrastructure, and cybersecurity expertise. So this field is still not covered. We still need a lot of expertise to ensure that by 2030, we actually are able to meet the demand that is required for us. Thank you for now. That's what I had for you today.
Thank you so much, Wangechi. This was a very elaborate and enlightening presentation. It's amazing to see how you covered the role ICT plays from the generation down to productive use and empowering customers. Coincidentally, actually, I'm working on a project that is looking at 3D printing electric motors for processing equipment like rice milling machines to improve the performance. So it's amazing that 3D printing and additive manufacturing is also being popular in the renewable energy space. Yeah, so just a bit of to test the knowledge of our listeners or those who tuned in. We'll be launching a poll to basically figure out how much you know about the renewable energy space. And Mr. Anthony, please could you launch the poll? Mr. Anthony. Okay.
Yes, please confirm you can see it.
Yes, I can see the poll.
Okay.
So please, if you could just answer the few questions before we go on with the subsequent presentations, that would be amazing.
Okay.
While everyone is trying to fill up the poll, our third panelist, Mr. Joseph Brendan, just joined us on the poll. Mr. Joseph, welcome and thank you for joining us. Hi, Mr. Joseph. Mr. Joseph, can you hear me? Sorry, I think we've lost Mr. Joseph again. If you have any questions for any of the panelists, you could drop it in the chat box or unmute yourself and ask the question directly. I'm presuming we'll have a lot of questions from how ICT affects energy generation to remote monitoring down to the productive use of energy and the influence SDG 7 has on achieving the other SDG goals. Does anyone have any questions for the panelists or myself? I think I have a question from Ms. Wangechi. Ms. Wangechi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Sachima.
Okay, so my question is basically from the energy storage point of view. So we all know that the battery is the most expensive component of a mini grid system, solar mini grid particularly. And with new research and developments, there's research around the reuse of lead acid batteries. So I don't know if that is an area you have a bit of knowledge on, or if it's still very new. Do you know of any any of such project that has been done, and if you have an idea of how long the battery life of a used lead acid battery can be, and how efficient would it be to support the solar mini grid going forward. I don't know if it's an area you have a bit of knowledge on.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, energy storage is still a new area. And I also have my colleague on board, Anne. She can actually, if she has an idea on this, maybe she can also assist me on this. Anne, do you have an idea on the energy storage?
Sorry, maybe you repeat the question again.
Okay, so I was saying the most expensive components of the mini grid, the solar mini grid system, is usually the batteries. And then there are new research around the reuse of lead acid batteries to potentially reduce the cost of deploying solar mini grid systems. So my question is, how conversant are you about the reuse of lead acid battery, and is it really a sustainable way? Does it still give the same output as a new battery would? What's the lifespan of a reused lead acid battery? If it's possible, has it been done somewhere?
Okay. Currently, we've not deployed any in our country, but we are having some studies going on to try and establish the best technology, because as you say, there are now, I think, 4 technologies that have emerged of battery. So to try and see the one that is most economical and the one that has the highest levels of efficiency, because the understanding is that some are very inefficient and the degradation level is very high as they age. So we are doing a study to establish this, but we've not deployed any yet.
Okay, amazing stuff. I guess I'll follow up on you on that. Maybe if you eventually deploy, I'd like to have some insights on, the workability of your reused lead acid battery. Thank you so much, Anne, for your contribution.
Thank you.
So I think Mr. Joseph is here with us already. Mr. Joseph, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me?
So much. Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you so much for joining us. So,
all right.
This is the best for the last. So you're our last panelist today to share your knowledge on the role of achieving SDG7. So if you can briefly introduce yourself before you start your presentation, that would be amazing.
All right. So my name is Joseph Brendan. I have been a software engineer and a UX engineer also for a while now, for about 6 years, professionally for 6 years, and have built software in the finance industry, the logistics industry, and also I have about 4 years building APIs, and 3 years ago, I developed serious interest for energy, most importantly, clean energy. So I have been following the TSET program for a while now, and I am glad to be invited to speak today. So today I will be speaking on the role of ICT in achieving SDG7, the SDG7 goal. And before I proceed, I would like to confirm if you guys can still hear me. I would like to always check for that because
yes,
of
we
network
can still
connection.
hear you, Mr. Joseph.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So I'll just go straight to business. I'll go to my next slide. Now, today I'll be just covering 4 major sections. I'll introduce what the SDG7 goal is, and I'll talk about the challenges faced, and I'll talk about the ICT solutions that have been deployed to tackle those challenges and the possible ICT solutions that can be deployed for those challenges also. And also I would share some opportunities, some ICT opportunities in the sector also. So I'll just go straight to business and start with the introduction. So like we all know, the SDG7 goal is the 7th goal on the list of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. And the goal of the SDG7 is to ensure that we humans have easy access to clean and affordable energy for the development of agriculture, business, education, infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So the next slide will be this. I would like to talk about the challenges, right? The challenges that this goal is facing. And I would focus on just two challenges. Now, one of the challenges that I would focus on is the affordability for end users and the collaborative research by innovators. The challenges being faced by the research part of this goal. So let's look at the first challenge, which is affordability for end users. Now, these days, as we all can testify, energy in general is getting unaffordable by the day, whether it is clean energy or not clean energy, right? So, but looking at the fact that the type of energy goal that is captured in the SDG 7 is clean and sustainable energy, and also looking at the cost surrounding it, we can all agree that clean and sustainable energy is more unaffordable by the larger population today. Now, let's look at some numbers to support this actually, and let's focus on Africa that currently has the most energy deficits. So, according to the African Development Bank, about 640 million Africans do not have access to electricity to start with. And as of 2022, the United Nations Human Development Index says that about 460 million Africans are living in poverty, like extreme poverty. Now, if the goal of the SDG 7 is to ensure access to clean energy to all humans, right? With these numbers and the very high cost of clean energy, it is clear to us that Africans won't be able to afford even fossil fuel energy, not to even speak of clean energy, which is more expensive currently than fossil fuel energy. So let's look at some ICT solutions that's been introduced down the line to help solve the affordability problem of energy in Africa. And one notable solution is the introduction of smart meters by MTN for their pay-as-you-go solar and battery systems. Now, this innovation by MTN helped a lot of people as they were able to access electricity for below $2, for as cheap as below $2. They were able to access power for as cheap as that. Now, that's one notable ICT solution that has been put out there to tackle the affordability problem of energy in Africa. And also, there is a pay-as-you-go solution also in East Africa for solar energy. Although I don't know the company or the firm behind that, but I know that there is a renowned pay-as-you-go solar energy service in East Africa. So the question is this: is that all we can have? Can we just have the pay-as-you-go service only? Of course, and definitely no. Now, a case study was created by the students from the renowned Dev and Design Bootcamp, which highlights how a crowdfunding app supported by smart meters can be used to tackle the affordability problem of electrical energy in Africa. Now, in summary, right, this solution is to work like a typical GoFundMe platform where users can request honest donations globally in bits, whether from private individuals, from corporations, from NGOs also. Users can request honest donations in bits to fund their smart meters. Right? Now, let's look at the second challenge. Let's just take this quickly. Let's look at the second challenge that the SDG goal is being faced with. And according to my list, it is the challenge innovators and scientists have always faced with collaborative research. That's it. Now, we all know that the energy cost problem is a problem that needs a scientific solution, right? Because we can't really address that problem using just government policies only, and we can't address that problem also using just just campaigns and so on, right? We all know that to address that problem from the roots, it has to be addressed scientifically. Now, this is it. Because it has to be addressed from the science part of it, there is heavy need for research. Now, the best research will always be collaborative with the help of great scientists across the world. But there are some challenges that makes this almost impossible, and some of them are the absence of real-time collaborative platforms for energy researchers. We also have another problem which affects this solution, which is the absence of a remote and stable bandwidth for research and data flow. And we have another problem here, which is intellectual property abuse and theft. Now, let us look at how ICT has been able to address these three challenges facing the collaboration of scientific researchers. Let's look at how ICT has been able to improve this. Now, as for collaborative research platforms, we have software like Sana and Trello, and even sometimes Notion, that have been since adopted in the research space to carry out collaborative research, thereby enabling the collaboration of great scientists across the world in real time. Now, this means that actually scientists don't need to exist in a physical workspace to actually carry out research in that workspace. Now, scientists can collaborate from any region of the world using digital workspaces that are collaborative, like Asana, like Trello, like even ClickUp and even Notion. Now, this has made different scientists around the world to be able to contribute to different levels of research without being limited by time and location. And as for the other problem, this second problem here, which is the absence of remote and stable bandwidth for research and data flow, we have seen the improvement and the penetration of internet bandwidth like never before, right? And ICT companies like Starlink by SpaceX have been achieving huge results with this by deploying satellite internet to remote areas with an average speed of 40 megabytes per second, with an average speed. Starlink sometimes goes up to 200 megabytes per second in very remote areas where it has always been difficult to get fiber optic cables there. Now, this means improvement of research and collaboration also means that, okay, this solution by companies like Starlink means that you can have a research firm, let's say in the North Pole, and they won't have issues with internet. The research firm won't have to leave the North Pole to regions where they have capital regions where they have stable internet. Now, this has been a solution that's been deployed, and Starlink is spreading really far and wide. Starlink is to launch very soon in Kenya. It's to launch also very soon in Nigeria. And the scientists around these regions can use that as an opportunity to share knowledge and to get knowledge easily from anywhere in the world. Now, for the last problem that I cited here, which has been the plaguing of the collaborative research of innovators, right? This problem is basically intellectual property abuse and theft. This has been a very serious problem for decades and decades now. This problem has been on for a very long time, and structures like patenting have not been very positive when it comes to curbing this problem. But with the introduction of blockchain technology today, research carried out on blockchain platforms can solve this problem by 99%, as every event initiated on the blockchain can be tracked transparently and cannot be modified. The blockchain presents a source of truth, and it can be used to ascertain a case of IP theft or duplication. Now, over to the opportunities. I'll just round this up quickly. Now, over to the opportunities that ICT presents in all of these. There are tons of ICT opportunities in the energy sector that aligns with the SDG 7 goals. And to name a few, we have, let's go to the opportunities slide. We have software development, we have data modeling. And by software development, I mean building APIs and building apps, or building APIs that the smart meters can consume, building apps that can be used on mobile phones, or building APIs that the end users can consume using USSD codes. So that's what I actually mean by software development. And also data modeling. Now, data modeling plays a huge role when we are talking of research. Data modeling plays a huge role. Now, this is simply you collecting data, studying the data, modeling the data, and also setting a pattern so that when new data sets come in, the pattern can be followed, or when the data is to be consumed, you can actually pattern the data to watch out for things it has been able to learn, and also adapt to new things, to new data sets that are similar to the path that you have created. Now, data science is also an opportunity in this field, and this is just you being like a scientist, not an engineer. Data science like the bedrock of everything data, studying data, understanding data, setting the flow on how data can be analyzed, data can be modeled, data can be engineered, and so on and so forth. So data science is like a very huge opportunity in this sector. Every research firm has a data scientist, or every research group has a data scientist. And with the advancement of platforms like TensorFlow, GPT-3, data science and data modeling has improved heavily, and it serves as a very huge opportunity. Then there is another opportunity which we all know: blockchain engineering. This is simply you using blockchain platforms like Ethereum, Polygon, and so on to build platforms that can control theft and IP duplication. Then we have 3D design and modeling. Now, when some researchers are carrying out their research, there are always times where there is need for a little prototype. Now, when there is need for that little prototype, 3D design and modeling can come into play. You can come up with you can come up with a very basic design, and the 3D printer will print that so that it can be used to test the idea that's been researched upon. Then we have automation and robotics. This is also very important. This is a huge career also in this sector. Automation. The world is getting automated by the hour because automation makes processes more efficient and less expensive. Then embedded systems engineering. This is you configuring hardware, learning how to program chips, program hardware, program other parts of different hardware. And since we are trying to build systems that will promote clean and cheap energy, definitely there will be need for new types of hardware, new types of chip, and new types of processes. And embedded systems engineering is a very huge opportunity in this field because it presents you with the opportunity to take part in the programming of new and more efficient chips, cheaper chips, and so on and so forth. So that's where I am going to draw the curtains for today. And thank you guys for having me. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. This was amazing. Came from Very, very interesting point of view. I think what caught this particularly was
before somebody will say that we are drinking tea by 1 p.m.
Would you mute yourself? And thank you, Mr. Joseph. It was amazing hearing from you. I think what caught my attention particularly was, the role ICT plays from the remote monitoring point of view, particularly from system integration and all that. Because I mean, if you can integrate a system to remote monitor, then data would not be gotten, and data is very, very pivotal in building solutions. Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. If anybody has any questions for the panelists, you could drop it in the chat box or just unmute yourself and ask a question directly. So, Mr. Joseph, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So, the first part of your presentation, you spoke about the affordability of clean energy, which I agree. I totally agree. Have worked into renewable energy companies where I basically was majorly, I was a customer-facing person deploying productive use to rural communities. And a major problem of mini grids, both from the developer's point of view, is most of these mini grids are in rural communities, yeah? Electricity consumption is low. With low electricity consumption automatically means low profit. So productive use of energy is now the next leg. So you're influencing these people to use the lights in a more productive way. However, the cost of the productive equipment is now another thing. So they're struggling with the cost of energy, they're struggling with the cost of the equipment. So what do you think is a way that we can promote affordability? Because personally, even though the cost of batteries and the cost of systems are reducing, before it to get to a point where the cost of clean energy is equal to the cost of, energy from the grid, that will take a very long time. So I don't know if you have any insight on, what could possibly be done to potentially reduce the cost of electricity. Because right now, even with the high cost, we still have a lot of grants that is supplementing the cost. So imagine if there were no grants for renewable energy projects. What do you think could potentially reduce the cost of?
The hope of clean energy is that it is you can easily not service it when you have it. It is not like fossil fuel energy where you have to pay certain amount just to
hear you clearly.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right. So like I said, right, the good thing with clean energy is that if you have the equipment installed, you can choose not to service it monthly, and that is actually cheap when it is there. Now the main cost comes in from the equipment itself, and to run down the cost from the equipment side typically means re-engineering. That's the approach. The approach has to be a re-engineering approach. And currently there are research and different innovations around that, like the development of nano microchips, and also the research around better batteries. So if we have better battery cells, and we have more efficient microchips for these devices, definitely it is going to run down the cost and make it more affordable. Because the moment somebody has their solar panels or have any equipment of such installed in their house, most times they don't spend any more amounts just trying to have it up and running. So the main cost lies in the equipment, and re-engineering is the only way to run the cost down. And the research is going to fire up the re-engineering process. So I think that's just it.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have one final panelist that's going to share with us. Apologies, Mr. Kennedy, for skipping you. So Mr. Kennedy is going to basically talk about, productive use of energy from the e-mobility point of view. How do we incorporate ICT in promoting more productive and profitable use of energy? So Mr. Kennedy, if you can unmute yourself introduce yourself and start your presentation, that would be amazing.
Thank you very much, Sochima.
You're welcome. So if you can introduce yourself and then start your presentation.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so you can all see my screen, or?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right. My fellow panelists have talked about SDG 7 goals and how we are pushing to have clean energy. So we are also looking at how this will be implemented in our day-to-day needs, and our solutions focus on transport and the logistics sector. E-mobility trackers are definitely a game changer for EV efficiency and management. My name is Kennedy Minor. I'm the Business Development Manager for East and Central Africa at TONIPASH. Just to give you a brief background of my company, TONIPASH is an IoT manufacturer. It is based in Lithuania. We have our headquarters in Vilnius. We also have 3 regional offices, one in Casablanca, taking care of Northern Africa, one here in Kenya, Nairobi, taking care of East, Central, and West Africa, and another office in Johannesburg, which caters for Southern Africa needs. So TONIPASH, like I said, manufactures IoT devices, but we have 6 business lines. We have telematics, which basically deals with transport telematics devices. Here we are talking about GPS trackers for vehicles that enable fuel monitoring, basic tracking, and so on. We also have networks, which deals with manufacturing of switches, routers, and so on. We have a telemedic business line for medical equipment, mobility, which is where primarily focused on or based in, which deals with personal tracking, asset tracking, and e-mobility. We have EMS, that is the plant itself, which has SMT lines that do all the manufacturing, and also a very related department called energy, which recently launched in Nairobi almost a month ago. That is basically dealing with the charging stations for both commercial and home use. So focusing on e-mobility, we have already seen that with clean energy, we are able to utilize this in various sectors, and especially so in transport and logistic sector, with the main hindrance for uptake of this, like I think Joseph mentioned, being affordability. So we want to encourage investors, both local and international, also regional, to invest in e-mobility as a sector and provide affordability of EVs to our local populations. How do we do that? The investors need to be able to secure their assets whenever they are providing either these assets on hire purchase to increase affordability, or pay-as-you-go platforms or models like were mentioned before. I think Joseph mentioned something to do with a company based in East Africa that is doing very well in terms of solar energy pay-as-you-go model. I think you might be talking about M-Copper, although there are several others. But with these sort of investors, they also need to have a system whereby they are able to trace and secure their assets once they provide them on either pay-as-you-go models or any other hire purchase or leasing models. So what is the solution? Before we get to the solution, we can look at global e-bike sales currently within the last 5 years. Since 2018, there is an upward trajectory whereby EVs are on the rise, and especially so for e-bikes, which provide more affordability. They are less capital intensive, even in terms of maintenance and availability. So if you're looking at some of the solutions that we have for e-mobility in Africa, we would start probably with why e-mobility is a need. So we have rapid migration to the cities, especially cities in Africa, as more and more young people move towards urban centers to look for better opportunities. And this creates congestion and poor air quality in our cities. So driven by health and environmental concerns, there is need to reduce conventional means of energy like oil imports, gas-powered vehicles, and so on. And that is why e-mobility is gaining prominence across our cities, both in the public and private sectors. So we have homegrown approach being adopted by e-mobility startups in Africa, because Africa by itself is a very unique market. It's not like any other market, not like Europe or Asia. We have our own unique challenges, our own unique opportunities. And here we are talking about motorcycles, that is 2- and 3-wheelers, being the most effective or the most popular last mile delivery means of transport. So here in Kenya, according to the Motorcycle Assembly Association, the public transportation industry generates over $4 million daily, and this largely attributed to 2- and 3-wheeler space. So we have so many boda-bodas. I think in Lagos you call them Okadas. You have so many Okadas operating in East Africa, in West Africa, in Africa in general, much more than 4-wheelers in terms of especially last mile delivery options. If you're shipping something from China, once it gets to the port and gets on a train or vehicle, at the last point of delivery, mostly we are using 2- and 3-wheelers because they're more affordable. And they are able to traverse even rural areas or areas where the infrastructure does not support conventional means of transport. So now that we know we have the need for e-mobility in Africa, we have tied that to the need for investors to assess or have access to the location of these assets and secure these assets in such a way that they are able to recall these assets in case of either defaulting or if they need to recall the asset back for whatever reason. We also need to have IoT solutions in conjunction with these EVs to have a management system for these assets so that our investors are also sure of the location of their assets, and they have that capability of recalling or repossessing the asset whenever they need to. So here is where we have these solutions. The first solution is a e-scooter tracker plus, or the TFT 100. It is quite a small device. It's basically a tracker that has extra functionalities. We call it a tracker on juice. The first reason being that it can support most e-scooter models. And when I speak of e-scooter here, I mean e-scooters in general, e-cycles, e-motorbikes, and so on and so forth. The way it works is that it has different interfaces. What these interfaces mean is just basic connections for different manufacturers, different architecture of different 2- and 3-wheelers. So the interfaces include CAN-based interfaces, UART, RS-232, and RS-485, depending on the manufacturer of the EVs or where the EVs are being assembled. It also has ingress protection, which means it is able to, it has an IP rating of 67, which means it's water and dust resistant. It is able to operate in adverse weather conditions in areas where infrastructure is not that developed. It also has it is also capable of what is called OTA updates or over-the-air updates, which means that whenever this device is installed in a 2- or 3-wheeler, as the owner of the asset or the company providing the pay-as-you-go service, you are able to send commands over the air without necessarily needing to recall the device or recall to have physical access to that device. We're able to send firmware updates in case there are new features to be added, or even new commands settings on how the device should operate or send data. Additionally, it is noteworthy to note that this device has exceptional power supply range, which ranges from 9 volts all the way to 97 volts. How is this important? It's very important because with normal petrol-driven, or what we call ICE, internal combustion engine bikes, their internal batteries max out at around 15 or 20 volts. What happens with electric bikes? The electric bike has a larger battery capacity that can range from 48 volts, from what I've seen, all the way to 72 volts. So this device is capable of handling such large voltages coming from the larger capacity battery. Such that if you put normal telematics devices, which max out at 30 volts, they are not able to handle EVs. And these are the kind of devices that are flooded in the market. We have normal telematics devices, but you don't have devices in the market really that are tailored for EVs because of that larger battery capacity. Another very important thing to note is that these devices have configurable input-output, which means this device is able to, you're able to configure, for example, the digital output pin to immobilize this vehicle or immobilize this two-wheeler or three-wheeler in case you need to. You also have a feedback mechanism that you can install as a configurable input-output, such as a buzzer or an alarm in cases of overspeeding, excessive idling, which means that it's sapping up all the battery, or even green driving. So you have some feedback mechanisms and some configurable input outputs that you can use in conjunction with this device. So this primarily is for 2 and 3 wheelers that are motorized with the battery capacities ranging from 48. The maximum I've seen currently is 72 volts. So it's on top of all that, it's also, of course, doing your basic tracking, whereby you're able to know where this asset is at all times. And this really, really assists companies such as M-Copper and others who are using the pay-as-you-go model in terms of providing EVs, which are two-wheelers and three-wheelers on a pay-as-you-go model, also increasing affordability and uptake of these EVs. So that's the first device. The next generation device will be ultra small. The reasoning here being, or the thinking behind it being, to make the tracking device even less conspicuous and much more unlikely to be noticed by the user of the bike or the user of the asset. So it's the same kind of features. We have the same ingress protection, IP67 rating, but now it's much, much smaller. It's actually the size of a €2 coin, if you can use that as a base model to look at the dimensions. So it's basically 2 centimeters across, with a width of at least 1.5 centimeters. So it's quite a small device. So it's basically having the same capabilities, only that it's smaller. It's easier to mount even with the next generation of EVs. Right now, we're looking at conversion of, or even conversion of normal bicycles into e-cycles. We have a couple of companies here in Kenya and also others I've seen in Ghana and Nigeria doing that. So this is the ideal device for that. All right, lastly, we have this as a TST100, a Kick e-scooter tracker. We do not have as many companies providing Kick e-scooters. I don't know the situation elsewhere. In Kenya, I've only seen one company, Little Cab, that recently introduced Kick e-scooters for easy mobility within the central business district in Nairobi. It's quite affordable. I think you pay less than $50 for some intercity transport, where you need to move maybe from one office to the other, and you need some form of mobility. This is quite popular in Asia, Europe, and the Americas, but it's also starting to gain ground here in Africa. I've seen Little Cab introduce this in the past couple of weeks, and we have this solution for them to manage those assets. In terms of geofencing, setting up the geofencing zones, that these assets should not leave the central business district or should not leave one area of the city to the other. We also have battery management and speed management. You're able to monitor the speed and also immobilize or lock and unlock that asset when you need to. It can also read ECU data from the bike, depending on the make and model of that asset. You have a lower power supply range because Kiki scooters do not really require large battery capacity. It ranges from, I think, around 32 to around 48 volts, which is quite within the range for this device at 8 to 50. Again, we have the OTA updates where you're able to update firmwares to include new features and also change settings while the bike is on the go. And of course, the most important thing, to lock and unlock that bike depending on the payment that has been made. So once you put those bikes on the street, there are usually some stations, and then you're supposed to scan a QR code, make payment, and once the payment is made, then this device unlocks that asset, unlocks the Kick e-scooter for a period of time depending on how much payment was made and so on and so forth, while also managing that asset such that it does not leave the confines of some areas, which we call geofencing zones. And you're also always monitoring the battery levels, things like idling, speed management, and general usage of that asset, including crash detection, fall down detection, towing detection, attempted theft, and so on and so forth. So these are devices that we are actively using to manage these sort of assets in the EV space. If I would look at some of the use cases that most of our partners are employing EVs in, we are looking at food delivery. We have a couple of food delivery companies that are moving to electric, and with the move to electric, they also need IoT solutions that will help them first have an immobilizer option, whereby you're able to immobilize that asset whenever you need to recall that asset or repossess that asset. Whether from the corporate side or even if the rider got the asset by himself for his own business. So you're able to have complete control of that asset. You're also able to know the charge status of that asset. Very important. You don't want your battery, your EV to run out of juice while you're running an errand. So you have battery status at all times being sent to your platform, and you're able to manage your fleet or even your single EV to know how the battery levels are. And this also can be tied in via an API to know where the next battery charging station is. Once we have this infrastructure more available, especially in Africa. In Kenya, I know we are moving towards that that side, whereby we are going to have intercompatibility within different companies, whereby you're able just to get into a station, whether it's a fueling station or a charging station, and you're able to pay and get your EV charged, regardless of which manufacturer your EV is from. So that is quite important. You also have remote control, basically meaning you have complete control of that asset. Time spent while during the ride, since from ignition till idling till trip distance and time spent during the trip, you're able to do, the asset is able to send all these data to the platform, which does the calculations and sends you a report maybe at the end of the day, and so on and so forth. Also for food delivery, these devices work with other IoT sensors like temperature, humidity sensor, such that you're able to always monitor the temperature within that box, that food delivery box, such that you're monitoring those deliveries. You don't get your clients cold lunches and dinners and so on and so forth. Second use case, very popular, is the courier services. And here, this is both for post, mail, and also cargo. So we are also seeing an uptake on this, whereby we have various homemade and also home assembled cargo e-cycles and e-bikes that are being used for intercity delivery of mail, for corporates delivery of small packages, and so on and so forth. And with this also, you need to have the same features as such as you're able to immobilize, you're able to know the exact location of that asset, how far it's traveled during the day, what kind of trip it has made, the battery management system, it's working, and so on and so forth. The other use case I'll also talk about is corporate sharing. This is where we are looking at having stations just like they have in other countries, whereby you have a station you're able to pay for either charging or even short-term leasing of an e-bike or an e-cycle or whatever it is, or an e-moped. And based on the distance that you cover, then you're charged. And with this, you also need the same sort of capabilities that you need to lock or unlock depending on payment that has been made. You need also to alert on the battery status, the kind of distance that can be covered, geofencing, and of course speed limits, and so on and so forth. So this is the future, I think, for EVs, especially in Africa, whereby you're going to have such stations, especially in the urban and peri-urban centers, whereby you don't need to own. You can also lease on short-term basis, depending on the distances to be covered, the geofencing areas that are covered, and so on and so forth. Lastly, also look at forklift management. We also have some companies which are moving towards EVs in terms of work machinery, like forklifts and so on and so forth, scissors and so on. Forklift scissors, we have these golf carts, e-golf carts, and so on and so forth. And with this one, what you need is, of course, the battery life monitoring, alerts and system reporting, where there is any unauthorized use also, and also total working hours of the person using that forklift, when from the time the person started their duty with the forklift until maybe the end of the shift. Also performance and monitoring of any duties that were assigned to be used with this sort of machinery that are now moving towards electric power. All right, just as a recap, we've talked about some very, very important use cases that we are expecting to be taken up in Africa. That is e-scooter sharing, food delivery, e-forklifts, post offices, that is mail and courier services, e-cycles, whether for fun or leisure or even for delivery services, e-rickshaws, that is the three-wheeler space for leasing, predictive maintenance for all EVs, and also the free floating, whereby I mentioned this is a new service that has been introduced by one of our flagship taxi hailing companies in Kenya. So all in all, IoT will be there to support the move to EVs and adoption of EVs. Today I've tackled only on transport and logistics, but we have other industries or other sectors where IoT will be working hand in hand in ensuring not only affordability on the move towards EVs, but also more innovative technologies to promote clean energy in Africa. That has been it for today. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, you can always reach out.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kennedy. Amazing to hear about e-mobility. Sorry, excuse me. So e-mobility is particularly an area I'm very interested in. I recently just did sort of like a strategy and a business model for e-mobility with Hawks Power Systems. I was working in Hawks Power till I went for my studies. I think one particular, the particular viewpoint we were seeing e-mobility as was for the optimization of solar mini grids in rural communities. So integrating mobility to increase energy consumption and promote sustainability of the system, while also facilitating in-community transport as well as operation and maintenance, because most of the sites I worked in are located in clusters. So if you have an e-bike, two-wheelers, basically, it will grossly reduce operation costs of site managers and technicians. Amazing to hear how e-mobility and ICT could promote energy access. So we have a couple of questions from the chat box. So if any of the panelists can jump on any question, I read out. So someone wanted to find out, the extent of internet penetration in Africa compared to energy. Would you say the penetration of internet is wider than the energy, or vice versa? If any of the panelists could, shed more light on this area, that would be amazing. Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So can any of the panelists please shed more light on the question I just read out, the extent of internet penetration in Africa compared with energy? I personally think the penetration rate is farther than that of energy, with the extensive use of smartphones and development of 4G and 5G networks. So yes, I think clean energy penetration in Africa is still a bit slimmer, but
hello?
internet has, sorry?
Okay.
Joseph, do you want to help me out with this question? That would be amazing, because you're an expert in this field. Hello, Mr. Joseph.
Yeah, hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. I just want to share my opinion on this. Not for
Okay,
a
thank
fact,
you.
though, but I don't have exact numbers on this. But we can also measure the internet penetration with the penetration of SIM cards, right? We can also measure it using that in a way. So
Yeah.
and definitely we have more people, more mobile network subscribers than we have energy subscribers. So and personally, I would say we have more internet penetration in Africa than we have energy penetration.
I totally agree with you too. I don't have particular figures to back this up, but I personally think internet penetration has gone further than energy. But then another thing is the extent energy, particularly solar mini grids, because in Nigeria and in rural communities, solar mini grids are like one of the most cost-effective ways of promoting energy access. And with solar mini grids, you need to remote monitor the system. So most times, mini grid developers have to sort of like a VSAT or a localized internet support to be able to monitor their system. So with each mini grid they are deploying, they are deploying some form of internet service. I also know of rural telephony and network companies like hotspots that partner with mini grid companies to increase network access. So I personally think internet penetration rate is higher, and then the access of energy could also be tied to how far internet penetration can go, considering they could go hand in hand, particularly from the remote monitoring aspect.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Then another person was asking about what IoT means. IoT basically means Internet of Things. So the entire ICT sphere, everything that the internet influences is Internet of Things. So if anybody has any additional question, you can unmute yourself, or we close for today. We've been here for almost an hour, 30 minutes. Okay, so I don't think there's any additional question.
Just to answer Mubarak before we close, Mubarak asked how it is to manage or maintain e-bikes on the road. It's easier than managing ice bikes. The initial capital might be a bit higher, but it's one cheap in the long run and much cheaper in terms of maintenance. The reason why it's much cheaper in terms of maintenance, if you look at an EV or a two-wheeler e-bike, you're looking at maintenance of batteries only, and you have a battery management system that gives data about the cells, predictive maintenance, and all this data on a regular basis. So you don't really need to change the batteries or replace the batteries for a period. Usually, sometimes it goes for some are offering warranties of 8 years and so on and so forth. So if you look at the initial cost, it might be capital intensive, but in terms of maintenance costs, well, compared to ICE bikes, much cheaper and more efficient.
Yeah, I think I agree with Mr. Kenneth, because e-bikes also have less moving parts. The lesser the moving parts, the lesser the maintenance cost.
Definitely.
Yeah, just another question I have for you, Mr. Kennedy. You just brought it to the fore of my mind. So, so the speed and rates of e-bikes is another concern compared to, you know, diesel. Like how I know it's totally dependent on the battery capacity, but then the batteries also have a DOD of maybe 30 or 40% dependent on the brand. So from your experience, would you say that, you know, the speed and rates of an e-bike can be compared to a diesel world bike? Or what would you think?
That's a good question. In my experience, the speed is not actually dependent on the capacity, but the motors that are being used. Remember, we have the batteries only as a power source, and then we have the motors that depending on the gear ratios that they're using and so on and so forth, then that is how the speed is determined. What I can say regarding the batteries, capacity of the battery, it takes center stage on two fronts. One is the distance that will be covered. Currently, with the partners I'm working with, we have a range of about 80 to 120 kilometers per full charge. And what this has necessitated is instead of having one battery that needs to be charged at the end of its charge cycle, most companies are having either swapping stations whereby the charge is almost done, then you go and swap, or for some bike models, they are having, because you have much more space where the engine used to be, you can actually have two battery packs on one bike. So while charging one, you're using the other, or during the span of a day, for example, this is a rider who is doing deliveries from 8 to 8, then he has both batteries and he's able to traverse throughout the day with the both battery packs, and at night then he's charging both of them with a charge going for depending on the capacity of the battery size, going for anywhere from $10 to $16 per two battery pack charge. Another thing, you said two things. The second thing would be the capacity of the battery would also depend. The capacity of the battery will also dictate the amount that this person is using in terms of charging, because they also have to look at current energy costs. But still, I'll give an example of Kenya. It's much easier, even for four-wheelers. It's much cheaper for them. Those who are in the e-hailing taxi cab service, it's much cheaper for them to use EVs than it is for them to use petrol-powered vehicles, because gas or gasoline is quite expensive. Petrol is quite expensive at the moment in Kenya.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. You know, renting at a cost is definitely cheaper for a cheaper business model. Thank you so much, Mr. Kennedy. Very insightful. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It's been amazing, an amazing conversation. I learned a lot from a generation point of view to the Internet of Things, to remote monitoring, down to e-mobility. It's been an amazing time, an amazing way to spend my afternoon.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you to our moderator. You were spot on, and also the presenters. Like Sochima has said, a lot of information has been shared, a lot of knowledge and wealth of knowledge has been shared by our panelists, and it was nicely moderated by a very capable moderator. So I want to thank everyone that has joined in today for the 8th edition of TONIPASH Sustainable Energy Talk. Like I did say at the beginning, what we try to do is to bring more awareness. Even if someone learns one thing or two at every edition, and it adds to the wealth of knowledge, it aids in energy access, it aids in renewable energy adoption, because what you really don't know, you can't benefit from. So people are beginning to see why clean cooking is important, why clean mobility is important, and recently how ICT can help in achieving more acceptability and adoption of renewable energy system. So thank you so much. And I encourage each and every one of us to join us for the 9th edition, where we shall also look at the roles of youth in achieving SDG 7. Like the poll that we saw earlier, you saw the number of persons, the number of youth, at least between the number of youth that usually come to this event or are in the energy space now. Like I tell people, it's our generation. This is a problem of our generation. The other generations have done their bit, but it's up to us now the baton has been handed over to us to push and see how we can not only achieve universal access to clean energy in Africa, but also to use this energy as a form of economic empowerment to our citizens, our brothers and our sisters, wherever they may be, in the rural area or in the urban areas, to lift their economic situation higher or to improve their economic situation. So I want to thank everyone that has joined in for the event today. And I wish to see you guys again next month on the 15th. Where we'll also bring in youth now to come and discuss what youth are doing in the energy space to achieve SDG 7. So once again, thank you to Ewuzie. Thank you also to Mwagichi, also Kennedy, and also Joseph Brendan. I also want to thank Sochima for her wonderful moderation this afternoon. I don't think we have any other question. Okay, I think Mubarak is asking for Mr. Kennedy's LinkedIn details. Mr. Kennedy, if you can post or quickly drop it on the chat box there. So the last thing we are going to do is just everyone turn on your camera. We'll take a screenshot for posterity's sake, so that we can tell everyone that we're here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Let me stop sharing so that everyone can, yeah. That was mine. Thank you so much. It's great seeing your beautiful faces. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Can you guys see me?
No, we can't see you.
Oh.
Nope. No.
Okay. I don't know what is wrong with my camera. I can't.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know. My system seems to be acting up this afternoon. Okay.
And we were just talking about ICT.
And I wish there was more time so that the experts in the call can fix this for me.
It's fine. Maybe next time we'll see your face.
Okay. So thank you so much, and have a lovely afternoon, and I Hope to see you guys again next week. You can follow us on YouTube. This event is live, is recorded, is available on YouTube, TONIPASH Energy. We'll also be sharing the event reports later in the month. And those who are interested in certificate of participation, please kindly, when we share the link to you, kindly fill in your details so that we can make that available to you. So thank you so much. The year is rounding up, and I thank everyone who has been part of our journey right from when we started. Early this year, I think that was April, that was when we had the first edition. Now is the 8th edition, and we have more than our participants are run into thousands now, so cumulatively. So I thank you so much, and hope to see you guys again next month. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.